Hello, everyone. My name is Swagger. You can also call me the promo guy. You're listening to the Small Business Show. My guest today is Anca Trifan. She's the founder, creator, and CEO of Trifan Events. She owns a boutique event planning and production agency that is offering event production consultation and planning, experience design, production management, and live stream for live, virtual, and hybrid events. How are you doing, Anca?
I'm doing excellent. Thank you so much for having me on today.
Yeah, I love having to talk to people in the event industry. So, would you please give us a quick bio about what you do, and then how you got into the industry?
Thanks for putting me on the spot, Swire. I gave you the bio, just read it. I actually have such a hard time like just talking about myself. Where do I start? I've been in the events industry for, I don't know, 20 years. I come from a heavy production world. My background really is sound engineering. I started in radio actually many years back, high school, college, and that kind of put me on this path of when I moved to the US to start sound engineering, because that was like the only thing that made sense to me, because I loved audio, I loved sound, I loved tweaking buttons and all that. So super long story short, after I've done, all the potting in LA, I decided to settle down and I moved to Portland, Oregon, and I started working in corporate events, doing event planning, event production, technical event planning, and I started my own company doing basically the same thing. And what Trifan Events is really, it's a small boutique agency that takes the heaviness of understanding and planning and executing production, takes it off the client's hands, and we give like a very hands-on approach, but also like a white glove treatment to all of our clients when it comes to production. And I've been doing that for about 20 years, but obviously with COVID-19, a lot of the process and what that looks like changed. So in 2020, a lot of that turned into virtual events, and how can we apply what we've known and what we've used all these years to support now events in a digital format online. And my main client really is the corporate client, the nonprofit client, the fundraising organization that needs to raise money, and then all the conferences of the world, because there's a lot of meetings and conferences that obviously need support, like audio, video production, and technology. So in 2020, that was interesting because it wasn't just our clients that needed to pivot. We needed to sort of like reinvent, not necessarily reinvent the wheel, but look at it differently. And what we used in the past just as a means to serve a purpose, like, oh yeah, let's use live streaming as a second thought, it became the main reason for doing that event, because now that's the only way you could reach your audience at home or wherever they were, by the means of a screen like we're doing right now. So I don't know if that really gives a whole rounded picture of me or what I do, because I do a lot of things. I'm a creator. I love to create. I love to, I have a podcast as well, Events Demystified. And I do a little bit of everything because I love to promote this idea of knowledge is there and information is free. You just need to be willing to look for it or learn, right? And grow and go with it and apply it, not just know it as a head level. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. And I actually would like to dive in deeper, right? So I love in-person event, right? I just actually had my first in-person networking event last week.
Oh,
It was a
nice.
it was a different experience. Haven't been out for over a year. So I want to get your take to see your thoughts for in-person, right?
Yeah.
Virtual meeting. We all know what that is. And now people are talking about a hybrid type event with in-person
Mhm.
and virtual. How would you rate the three of them, how effective are they? And can a company, a corporate client, or a nonprofit client use all of them, or should they only focus on one of them? What are your thoughts?
Well, let's just start with the beginning, right? Because in the wake of the global pandemic that we've all experienced, it wasn't just us event professionals that needed to quickly adapt, and in order, to protect the health and safety of our attendees and our sponsors and customers and clients and teams. A lot of our clients at that moment, they had to make the choice to cancel or postpone their events. My belief and firm belief was from the very beginning to not cancel, but instead pivot. And a lot of our clients had to learn, what does that even mean? It's, what is this virtual event that you speak of? How do you define it, right? So I had to start with educating a lot of my clients on what a virtual event is. It's basically at the basic of it all, at the base of, like, if you just look at the definition aspect of it, is a gathering that allows event organizers and speakers and attendees and sponsors to connect virtually through a digital environment. And it was a process of teaching our clients, how do you do this for your specific event? Because we've done webinars, right? I mean, it's webinars and virtual conferences, and all the technology that was out there. It's not new, but we needed to figure out an innovative approach to use those tools that we had at hand, so they align with what it used to be an in-person event to this new virtual channel, new virtual environment. Because if you just think of webinars versus virtual events, you want more than just a uniform experience where there's, attendees are attending this single session and all the information is, fed to them. We wanted something that was more engaging, where people could come and connect, where they could figure out a way in which they can even curate their own experience and their own content. And instead of having this passive approach, you wanted a more interactive approach, So that's when you started looking at this huge thing that now we call virtual events, and come up with the strategies around it, to include polls and surveys and Q&As, and all of those were part of the webinar interaction as a tool as well. But we wanted more than that. We wanted a community where you can have an event where people can come together and they feel like they're excuse me, they're part of more than just this one-off thing that they happen to join online. And we wanted to create experiences. So now, having done so many events in 2020, virtual events that were able to successfully create those type of communities and successfully raise money above and beyond anything that they thought was possible, now we have to, in a sense, apply all of this to a hybrid model, a hybrid experience. And then what is this hybrid event? And if you ask 100 different people, they're going to give you kind of like 100 different responses, because there's no single clean definition of what a hybrid event could be that can encompass all the varieties possible in today's, tech-centric world. And what I like to define that is in a very simple, clear way. It's like basically a meeting that would combine a face-to-face with a virtual aspect interaction. And there's obviously more facets to a hybrid model than just that. But the golden thread that will link them all together is this idea that there's both an in-person aspect and also a virtual, a digital aspect of people gathering together and exchanging ideas and building community. And what hybrid events is now for the rest of 2021 is this a bridge that can bring together the in-person and the virtual. And how we do that, it will it's what we work on right now, because nobody's figured out the formula. Nobody already has all the answers. And if you're in that place where you're trying to figure out, well, should we do another hybrid event? Maybe that was or was not successful in 2020, or should we do a hybrid event instead? It will come down to your whys and your goals, and what is it that, what is your mission? What are you trying to accomplish? And there is no answer that fits all, you know.
Okay. Yeah, I think, there's a lot of information there. And obviously there, with the pandemic, we have so many options now with just streaming or, meeting online. There's tons of options available. So depends on, like you said, depends on what you need. But I wanted to go even deeper because with your background, I think you'll be a very good person to ask. When we used to have in-person event, as you know, your job is to make the client looks good. So when the speaker go on, the lighting looks correct, they sound perfect, they're at the right spot where they want to be. But when, I'm sure that you noticed too, at a virtual event, the person, the speaker, or whoever presenting might not be tech savvy as you are, with all the sound, with all the lightings. And, I know we all spend a lot of time when we hop on, we spend a lot of time, make sure we sound right, we look right. Some people are not paying too much attention to that. And then I think it kind of make the experience difference. And we all been to a webinar, right, where the speaker just maybe locking on their phone, or they are driving, or they are doing something very busy, and it kind of change the experience. So how would you advise companies wanted to put together a virtual event? How much would they need to invest to get it ready? Maybe they're doing a virtual event where people are not in the same central location. How much thought should they put into the technical aspect of it?
Well, I think it's a great topic of discussion, and you bring up a lot of good points, because at the end of the day, if the only means of delivering your message is the screen, and the means by which you deliver that message now is sound and video, then by default, that becomes a huge part of your event. And my role in all of this is, when I talk to my clients and I work with my clients, is to make sure that I put their speakers in the best light possible. And that can be used, figuratively, but also practically. So the best thing that you could do as an organizer is really partner with someone like me, or an event producer that already has done this with so many previous clients and previous speakers. And part of my strategy and my best practice is to always meet with the speakers that will go live prior to going live. You can't just, show up on screen without having done any tech checks, any sound checks, any dry runs of what that might look like. And unfortunately, there's a lot of events that happen over Zoom, and don't get me started with talking about that, because that's a whole different conversation. And honestly, you don't have to go farther away than my podcast to know how adamant I am about that. Don't call your Zoom meeting an event, because it is not. It's just, that's the bottom line. So going back to how I support the speakers, my clients, to make sure that their speakers are showing up in the best light possible, and they are showing up professional, is I walk them through a series of checks, I would say. I like to call it this thing that it stands out for calls. Basically, I would go with them through what does the sound like? Like, do you have a microphone? Like, let's go through options. Like, if you don't have a microphone like me and you have, where you plug it into a mixer or an interface, let's use your computer's microphone, but let's go then into a quiet place, into a quiet space, and let's use some headphones. So you separate the sound that goes through the microphone and what you hear, because a lot of that echo and looping can happen where the feedback loop starts, and then you're like, I don't know what's happening. Why is it that I'm hearing myself twice? Also, what is the lighting? Just find a lamp around your house, multiple lamps. Like, it's funny because I was in a think tank with a lot of other event professionals and event planners and event producers like myself. And we were talking about exactly this thing, like how do we help, how do we support our speakers to show up on screen in the best light possible? And my best light of all of that was like, do you have a lamp in your house? Well, it's true. Like, you might not have the ring light, you might not have the GVM and GVC and all the lights and fancy things that you hear people have in their studios, but you have some lamps that you can put around, and don't be afraid to experiment. Like, does this look good on me? Like, is this like, do I have a, like, here I have a window on this side, so obviously I need something on this other side to sort of like complement. Like, you have lighting that's direct because you close the blinds on that side, so it doesn't like flood you, from one side. So there's a lot of things that a lot of people don't think about, but because I'm on the other side of the screen, and now I have this process where I go step by step through all the elements of what this entails, then I can be a little bit more, have that critical eye to make sure, okay, so how about that picture in the back, like maybe we shouldn't have it, like it's a little crooked, or maybe let's clean up your background a little bit, because location is very important as well. Like, we want the location to be clean, but we also want it to be to look professional, right? Like, if you don't have like a nice background, like we have actually that's not a virtual background, it's my actual bookcase like yours, Swire, then maybe we can work on, a virtual background. Although I will say, as far as I'm concerned, unless you have a good green screen and good lighting, don't try and attempt virtual backgrounds, because most of the time they're just not done well, and you just get lost in the background. Like, your hand is gone, it's like half of your head. Like, no, don't do that. It's not good. And then another thing, I go through is broadband, and that's huge. It's important. Like, I have a certain list of where could it be, how low could it be before it's too low, and what is it that I'm looking for. And like right now, sure, I could rely on my wireless Wi-Fi. Is super fast where I'm at here, but I'm always connected to a wire directly into my router, into my modem, and just to make sure that the connection stays, and knock on wood, that it stays flat and well and good throughout the event that I'm doing. But again, for me, that's implementing different backups and gates and things that I need to go through, because if I'm streaming events from my home office, I want to make sure that I have the best broadband that there is, and then I also coach my speakers through, like, if you're going to be on screen for this amount of time, let's make sure that it's focused, and make sure that it's as topical as it can be, so you provide the best content possible. So I don't know if that's what you're looking for as far as best practices, but that's sort of like one of the things that are super important. If you do have speakers that join you from their office, from their home, and office most likely is home office these days, what can we do to support them in their delivering of the content so that the technology doesn't get in the way?
Yeah, I think another way to put it too, for an in-person event, for those of us who have speak in front of, some people before, it's actually harder to control an environment like that. You have a big hall, you might set up your AV system, you're running cables, but then if you're a good speaker, then you will go and you actually practice, look at the space where you are standing here. If you're pacing, where are you supposed to walk? But then in your home right now, assuming that we're doing virtual conference, it's actually a lot easier to control, so all you have to worry about is the rectangle that we have. And just as we will have to spend some money, buy a suit and tie, the lady maybe find a nice dress, invest. If you know that you'll be speaking on a important meeting, a microphone will be better than the computer microphone. And this is something that you could
Absolutely.
buy as low as $20 on Amazon. If you are speaking all the time and I've talked to actually a contact of mine. He appears on TV every 2 weeks. I said, you got to step up a little bit more because you're going to be on TV. Now you're not going to the TV station. They're doing Zoom with the meeting. You got to step up because that's your reputation, your credibility. How you sound and how you look matters to people. If you are, wanted to be at top of your game, if you are an engaging speaker, this is something you got to invest. And, I think it's easier too for a speaker when they do virtual compared to in person. It's actually, even with Zoom, you can record yourself, right?
It's true.
So,
I think me and you think like that, but honestly, from a speaker's perspective, it's actually the opposite. They feel like it's much harder now that the basically the AV control and the production moved in their court, because all they've done in the past is show up at an event for tech check. Here's the microphone. We're going to control the lighting. We're going to control your slides. We're going to control the camera angles from the back of the room. You don't have to worry about anything but show up. And sure, you're very much, if you're a professional speaker, you're very much aware about, how you're going to move and how you're going to talk and how you're going to interact with your audience. But at least there is a response. At least you see them. For a speaker now having to present virtually, they do not have that feedback, like instant feedback of what did I say, didn't make the impact of what I'm expecting to see. Right now, they're just looking at the camera, they're looking at themselves on the screen, and there's nothing else. There's no feedback received as to, does it even make sense what I'm talking about right now? I don't see any eyes, I don't see any response. And then the control being on their end is like me as a producer that I run a lot of live streaming and broadcasting of virtual events. If something goes bad on their end, I cannot put my hand through the screen to fix it. I can do not turn on the knob or turn it off, or even the lighting. If they got struck by some, it's funny because Friday or Saturday this weekend, we had a major storm, and I was glad that we were, I wasn't doing any events that day, but we were without power for 2 hours just out of nowhere. And that never happens here. So if that happens while you're in the middle of your presentation and you get struck by lightning and your power is out, I cannot do anything from my end as an event producer to help your situation. You're on your own. Like the only thing I can do is move on to the next speaker, because right now you're out, right? Short of pre-recording your content. So yes, there is ways in which we like to call this, how much liability as an event organizer do you want to take with a lot of those live components of your event. And there's ways in which, some components could be live, but you'd be surprised how many live events out there are actually pre-recorded events, right? So nobody says that just because this is streaming live, that content cannot be pre-recorded and cannot look polished. And going into that polished production, what is that even? Like when you look at the screen right now and you look at this podcast, you see how it has branding and it looks nice. It's not this Zoom meeting that we're talking about, right? Just having two people side by side talking to each other without no branding, no background, no title slides, no beginning, no end. That is a Zoom meeting. That is not an event. And that's where you want to elevate a little bit the production value of your event and do a little bit of research, because there's so many tools out there. You don't have to spend, millions of dollars to create this polished production. I have different tiers of support packages for my clients, because I am very much aware, because a lot of my clients are nonprofits. They, from the get-go, they come with this idea, well, we have no money for anything, right? I mean, obviously you have to go back to like, well, you did have an event in-person event for many years before. You don't have now catered meals, you don't have a venue expense, you don't have flowers, and you don't have this and this and this. where did that budget line go? Sure, you did not have a budget line for virtual events before, but there's expenses that now you no longer have. So that's why for a lot of nonprofits that I work with in 2020, the net profits has been so much more what they've raised in the past, because now they subtracted all the other expenses that they didn't have to have anymore, and they just kept it like, okay, if before I spent so much money on the meals and the beverage and the venue and the location and all the other expenses that go into an event, in-person event, now I can at least allocate some of that budget towards the technology, the production that is required to get that message on screen and delivered to this audience, which now, going into this other part of the virtual event and hybrid event, which shouldn't be forgotten, is the reach that your event now has, because you're no longer just catering to your geographical location or whatever that event was. Now you can, reach all the way into on a different continent, right?
Mm.
And we had events like that where it was so fun, because I think it was a reunion for a college, a virtual reunion. And before, they would do those reunions for anyone that's in this, 50-mile, 100-mile radius of our campus. But now they're able to open it up. And they had people that used to be part of the college, and students and alumni that were joining from like Saudi Arabia and Africa and Asia and like all kinds of places like that they didn't even think about, because people moved on, they moved out of the country in other places for work or whatever, personal reasons. And now they're able to actually partake into the reunion because there's no more geographical barriers for them to be there, So that was fantastic. I mean, they were surprised just the fact that they were able to reach such a wide non-geographical location, because at this point there's no more barriers. But it was so cool to see that, and then see people interact and engage in chat and say, hey, I haven't heard from you, like, I don't know, like 15 years. I can't believe, like, what have you been doing all this time, right? So those are opportunities that are created to create that community that we're talking about, that now it's like, it's not just something that you do because you travel somewhere to join that event, but because you're able to, from wherever you're at in the world. And we shouldn't forget those lessons, because they need to be applied as we move into this hybrid new model of events.
Yeah, definitely agree. Especially you said, having a virtual event, you can actually reach anyone in the world right now who wants to tune in. So, for nonprofit, especially, they can now not only connect with people that are in their immediate area, they can actually reach worldwide if the messages can resonate with people that are outside the country. And I think you're right. And I never thought of that. And now you pointed out, not everyone is me, because I always want to control my AV, how I sound, how I look, but not everyone think like me. And you're right about the speaker. And maybe they're good at speaking, but then they don't really want to get into getting the right cable, getting the right light. So I think that's something we should think about, and to consult with a producer like yourself, because if you can let them know these are the steps that we could probably make sure to be okay to be on the live stream. But then obviously things are going to go wrong, just as any live event. But then if you take all these steps, then it will be better than what it is right now. So I think, having consultants like yourself for the actual event, and to mix in the pre-recorded, high value footage, right, for the organization, maybe to tell the main program what is the program is about. And then I've seen, then you jump into maybe a live Q&A, then you can have the speaker to be on to answer questions, and then you go on to other messaging again. So that's what I think we're calling a hybrid event. Not actually have to be in person and then live, but then it could be pre-recorded, live, and then some kind of Q&A, and then survey that you were talking about. So that could be hybrid.
That's technically called simulive. for hybrid to be a hybrid event, you'd have to have some sort of an element of an in-person audience, right? That's what the consensus is, at least, for what that might be like, and just because you want to create those, it might be a 2 event, but it has to be a similar experience where your in-person audience is not getting so much more than your virtual audience, and your virtual audience is not feeling like they're a second thought audience just because they're joining virtually. So how you implement that in a way that makes sense for your organization is very important, and is the making of all of our talks right now for the rest of the year, because we want to do it well, but at the same time, there hasn't been a lot of hybrid events yet practically done. The first one I've done was March, the second week in March, and now I'm working on another one in June. Not a lot of organizers are ready for that, and there are a lot of hoops and loops that we needed to jump through just for the March event to make it safe and to make sure that it's socially distanced, and to make sure that we don't just gather at this place and we're not aware what impact that might have for the safety of our audience. And at the same time, we wanted to make sure that whoever is joining virtually online, they feel like they're partaking in the same experience. So there's so much to talk about that in itself, because we're still figuring things out. If 2020, like beginning of 2020, was more like trying to fly this airplane and putting the wings on at the same time while you're flying it, I feel like with hybrid events, we kind of come back a little bit to that as well, because there is a lot of ideas out there. There's a lot of models, but how does that practically work for your event, for your audience? That will very much be the question to answer for yourself, and it goes back to your whys and your goals, and what is the strategy that you're looking to, and your ROI too, and what is your strategy to get to where you want to get to, and how are you going to do that, based on what's your why. So I think it's super important to take into account all the things that are to be taken into account, and ask the right questions before you even start planning anything of that nature. And then, we cannot talk about events and virtual or hybrid without, touching on content, like how do we create content that is creative? And now we have that opportunity to be creative and take more risk, because having this type of 2 distinct audiences, and maybe even 2 speaker groups, if you think about it, it will make for a more complex and definitely a more entertaining schedule. And I feel like as organizers, we should be free to consider how now we have the opportunity to include different sessions and different type of sessions and different type of durations, for different targeted audiences based on who's joining your event. And you can have, panel discussions with maybe half the panel on stage and then the other half joining via, video call, or you can have some regional studios where you live stream from, and then you have dedicated virtual MCs, and you have in-person MCs, and there's so many different models, again, where you can create innovative content for this new format of events. And again, going back to that, the pre-recording of content, don't forget about how that actually has a lot of value, because it can be played by all audiences. Your speakers that have been pre-recorded can join in chat, can answer all the questions live, and they can also, interact either if they might be in person or virtually. And I personally am of the opinion that with adversity, there's always opportunity. And this is yet another opportunity for us to push the envelope and be more creative and take more risks and create engagement and just be be willing to, make a few mistakes along the way, sure, but just grow into the next stage of what this looks like.
Yeah, I think it's going to be fine. As you said, with technology, there are so many possibility. You can make very good experience for the viewer. So maybe like making a live band, or streaming across the world. For example, what I've done for my daughter, like earlier for the year, she signed up for a K-pop group concerts. They have to pay. We have to pay $30 to join the YouTube channel, and then they actually stream their pre-recorded concert live, and then actually 300,000 families or people sign up for $30. So it's pre-recorded. People have a good time. They have engagement. They actually gave us special emoji for with the band on YouTube. So people are chatting, creating engagement, and then they actually make decent money with the concert being pre-recorded. So the opportunities are out there, and then I think they need you more than ever, Anca, because you have all the technical aspects. You know how to make things right for them. So which brings me to the last question, and if people wanted to get in touch and learn more about how they could level up the event, what would be a good way to reach out to you?
Well, first off, I think if you are willing to learn more about events, virtual events, hybrid events, you don't have to go any further than my podcast, Events Demystified. I get to interview a lot of event professionals from all areas of the industry. And even Swire was on my podcast, which is going to air towards the end of the month. And there's so much good information because I want to find out basically from their experience, from my guests' experience, what their take is on this new model of events. And we discussed virtual events in 2020. Now I'm discussing hybrid events and strategies and looking at it from all angles. So if all you care about is marketing, then just listen to the podcast episode with Swire. But if you care about like fundraising, you care about conferences and platforms and technology and production and everything that's to know about events in general, that's probably the main resource that I would give out. I also have a blog that I consistently add to on my website, and my website is trifanevents.com, TREEFANEVENTS.com. I'm on social media. Instagram is really the playground I play on most because it's fun and it's I guess less uptight, like LinkedIn. I do post on LinkedIn as well, and I'm found on LinkedIn as well if you look for my name, Anca Trifan. And that's spelled ANCA. I know I get a lot of mispronouncing and misspelling of my name, but it's ANCA. Trifan. And it's funny, the thing with like my last name and my company's name is actually a play on the pronunciation of my name. Because if you ask anyone, here, they would say, they would pronounce my last name as Trifan. But really, because I'm Romanian, I pronounce it Trifan. So that's how the name of the company, is more of a phonetic spelling of my name. So yeah, those are the places I would say. Yeah, reach out to me. I am an open book when it comes to sharing a lot of the things that I've learned over the years, and especially now with virtual events and hybrid events. Just in 2020, I produced over 80 virtual fundraising events that, not to brag, but they've raised over $2 million for my clients. And it's just by the use of technology and production tools that it wasn't just something that I made up. It was something that I've already worked with for so many years. So it just made sense to apply it to this new way of doing events and doing it well, because it's important. I'm a big advocate for, if you're going to do something, at least do it well, do it as excellent as you can. and don't just, and give it your best try. Don't just put it out there for all to see if you can produce the best version of what that could be. So let's talk. If there's anything I can help with, I would love to. Thank you so much, Swire, for the opportunity to be on your podcast and talk about it. I always have ideas how you can make your event better. So yeah, give me send me an email, send me a DM. Basically, those are the best ways to reach me.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's been a very fun discussion. So with that, we're going to end this episode right now. Thank you, Anca.